And welcome to this episode of the podcast where I'm joined by David Allison, who is founder of Value Graphics. David, hello.
Hello,
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me over. Nice place you got here.
Oh, well, yeah, it's just like home, isn't it, really?
It's just like home.
So you're also a human behavior specialist. So what I just need you to do is just explain a little bit about what a behavior specialist does and what value graphics are. I mean, that's the important thing we just need to sort out first before I've got a very specific question for you of how I think it can help me.
Okay, cool. Well, those two things are very interconnected. What value graphics is all about and what human behavior and being a human behavior specialist is all about. I spent my life I grew up in the marketing world. My job was to help my clients understand how to talk to large groups of people and convince them, like all organizations on earth are here to try and do, here's a group of people and let's get them to do this. We're all here to do the same thing. When you boil it all down, take away all the organizational structure and job titles and all that stuff. Every organization on earth exists to get a group of people to do something. It's that simple. So it does kind of beg the question, how do a group of people decide to do something so that we can intervene in that process and help them along the way and help them make the right decision that we would like them to make? So in order to understand that, you have to get into human behavior. So human behavior is a broad umbrella term that covers all kinds of different fields of science. We focus on three of them when we're telling this story, and I'll quickly touch on them. The first one's neuroscience. If you listen to a neuroscientist, they'll tell you that the prefrontal cortex of your brain is basically the CEO of your life. And everything that comes into your system, every piece of information that you collect goes through your prefrontal cortex, and your prefrontal cortex, like a good CEO, sifts it out, sorts it, and then decides what you're going to do and bosses the rest of you around and says, we're going to run away from this, and we're going to say yes to that, and we're going to feel happy now, we're going to feel sad now. All of that stuff is directed by your CEO, your prefrontal cortex. And as it turns out, your prefrontal cortex uses one set of filters to make all those decisions on your behalf. And it's really simple when you think about it. What you care about, what your values are, what's most important to you. Let's give it a real concrete example. If your family is the most important thing in your life, all that incoming data lands on the CEO's desk and he's like, okay, well, this stuff's good for my family, so we're going to go do that stuff. This stuff may be potentially bad for my family. We're going to run away from that stuff. And this stuff here doesn't seem to impact family whatsoever. So we'll, kind of just leave it alone until it sort of puts itself into a better pile so we understand what to do with this. So if you know that somebody is absolutely values, the most important value in their life is family, and you can connect the dots between your product or service or brand and their family or their sense of what would be good for family or families, they're going to be inextricably, biologically required to go in the direction you'd like them to go. So that's neuroscience. Let's talk about psychology. If you go to Psychology 101, your first day of university, as an undergrad student, you're sitting in the front row of that professor's lecture theater, and you're looking up at the front of the room, and likely one of the very first things that's going to come out of his mouth is some conversation about confirmation bias. Now, confirmation bias is a thing that in the world of research you try and avoid, because what it means is if you don't put a lot of thought into the way your surveys or your interviews are structured, you will get a lot of confirmation bias, which is people running towards and answering questions based on what they already think is true and what's important to them, what they already love, in fact, what they already value. So the psychologists realize that values determine behavior in the same way that the neuroscientists do. But what if, instead of it being a bad thing that the psychologists are talking about, we need to avoid this? What if we could flip that around and we knew what people were going to run towards and agree with in advance? Well, now we have a really powerful fishing lure that we can use while we're trying to engage with people and influence their behaviors. So there's two of the fields of human behavior science. The last one I'll briefly touch on is sociology. Sociology is where my research lives and where my database lives, and this is the connection to value graphics. Sociologists study masses of people. And why did this whole bunch of people go and do this thing when this other group of people, they went and did this other thing instead? Why did these people vote for this and these people vote for that? It always comes down in retrospect to an analysis of what they care about and what they value. So values are determining what these humans are doing. They have some shared values that made them run in this direction, or these ones have some shared values that made them run in that direction. So you see the link here. Neuroscientists, psychologists, sociologists, they all agree that what we value determines everything we do. Values are like the operating system for humans. So now let's talk about value graphics. When we started working on this, we realized after looking into these different fields of human behavior that there was a big missing link. If we were going to use this to talk to large groups of people, we didn't have a tool to understand what are the shared values of people before they do something. After a group of people have voted for and it's self-identified that we're going to go vote for this guy, you can figure out what their values might be. But trying to predict it in advance for, my favorite example is people who are going to buy reading glasses in Lithuania. What's going to make them buy your reading glasses instead of the other guy's reading glasses? Well, we need to understand what they care about. And if it is indeed family and let's say environmentalism and let's say authority, those are the three things that drive their lives. For some reason, those people are attracted of all the 56 values that exist in the world. Those three, they have in common, the people who are chasing these reading glasses. Well, now you know how to design your reading glasses, message around your reading glasses, talk to the distributors in a B2B environment around reading glasses, whatever it is you need to do around connecting the dots between your roles and responsibilities at Reading Glasses Corporation International and those three values, that's going to be the secret sauce. So we went and built a tool to do that. That's the Value Graphics database. We have 500,000 surveys now around the world that we've collected. We've measured those 56 core human values, and we can map it all over the planet for 180 different countries. What else can I tell you? We used a team of translators, so we have 152 different languages that we've had to play with in order to make this non-Anglo-centric. And it's more accurate than you need for a PhD from Harvard or Yale or Princeton or Oxford or wherever you want to point to. And what's really remarkable about this, if there's any statisticians listening, they'll light their hair on fire and run away and turn off this podcast right now, is that it's a random stratified statistically representative sample, which is a big fancy way of saying that it's basically a miniaturized model of the real world. So those 500,000 survey responses we have, they are in this data set in the same proportion that those humans exist in the real world, the same number of men and women, rich and poor, young and old, Argentinians, Spanish, Canadians, British. We've made our own little Lego model of planet Earth, so that when we do take things out of this data set and look at them, they're incredibly statistically accurate. And it's the first time in history that anything like this has ever existed. So we now have the ability to tell you, for any group of people, anywhere on Earth, what they care about. And once you know what a group of people cares about, as an organization who's just trying to get them to do something, all you have to do is give them more of what they care about. You know what to focus on. How's that for the longest answer ever to the first question on a podcast?
Short question, long answer. That's the way it should be. That's why I've been training people for the last 20 years. So, it's nice to know that it works sometimes. No, because it's not a simple answer, because you made it actually very, very clear, but it's not simple because of all the elements that it's entailing. It's not just like, oh, it's psychology, it's that bit. It's when you brought the neuroscience, the psychology, the sociology, plus the statistics, to basically, again, that one line I've written down here, because this is where salespeople's brains and ears are pricking up, going, any group of people anywhere in the world, you know what they care about.
Yeah, that's now, pretty cool, huh? Isn't that great?
That's really cool. It's way beyond cool, because I'm sure the salespeople who are listening to this, and like we said before, when we were chatting offline, it's mainly salespeople, I suspect. They're thinking that's my customers. You know what my customers. You are sat there in Canada with information about what my customers care about.
Yep. True.
Right. Wow. So I'm glad the first question was good, because the second one's going to be a bit wonky, because you've ruined it. You've ruined the one I prepared, because you've just changed the whole way I'm thinking about this, and I'm having to do it on the fly. So because I mean, what I was going to say, what I was going to ask is that, what I put in the book is that when we're qualifying, it's a good old sales language. We've got to qualify customers, and we bant and we Scotsman and we do all sorts of like checklists and things. And I say, well, we could be a bit more subtle about this. We could also psychologically qualify and start to look at how they think around things. You're just taking that to the whole next level. And it sounds that rather than qualify, we should be using it to target. We should be saying, well, just forget all that stuff, work out what people really want, what they value, and find out where they are and go and speak to them about that.
Sure. I mean, but it can just help you with the qualification process as well. I mean, it's once you understand what the group of, like, if you're in sales for a pharmaceutical company and you're selling a pill that magically makes my hair grow, which I would love to find.
Oh yeah,
So
where's that? Where's that one?
please call me immediately. I would argue that once you understand what the group of people that you're trying to sell to, what they care about, that's cool. And then if you have that in such a simple format and you know it to be statistically accurate and bang on, the next thing that happens is, as you are starting to look at your prospects and trying to qualify them and understand which are your A's and your B's and your C's and who you should be spending your time talking to and who's worth it and who isn't, you're just looking for the folks that are most aligned with the values that you know that you're going to be able to deliver on. So anybody whose values don't match or who seem like they're a little bit out there in terms, those are the long shots. What I think we do now most of the time is we look at demographics and psychographics, and we use that as a way to try and understand who's the long shot. So that's all cool. But, let me give you an example. My second in command and my good friend Josh, who works with me, he's let's say half my age, and he's comes from Australia, and I come from Canada. He's got a girlfriend. I've got a husband. He's had a whole different set of experiences in his life than I have. We have different income levels. We have different things, all kinds of stuff that if you looked at us demographically and psychographically, there's no freaking way we'd ever be in the same target audience for anything. But here's a value that we both share that would put us exactly in the same target audience and susceptible to a sales pitch from somebody who knew this about us in common. We both are driven. One of the most important values in our life is health and well-being. Now, the way it manifests in my life is different than the way it manifests in Josh's life. In Josh's life, he loves to go and climb mountains, and sometimes 2 or 3 of them in a day. He does those cold water plunges in icy mountain streams, and he wears this thing around his arm that's constantly monitoring his heartbeat. And I imagine he's, idea of a good time on a Friday night is sitting at home and looking at his heart rate charts and trying to figure out how he can game himself for tomorrow. Watches his diet in a very particular way, goes to the gym. Like he's a very, very unique way, a unique set of health and well-being approaches. Now, for me, I go to the gym and I lift weights 2 or 3 times a week, if I remember. I kind of watch what I eat sometimes, except on the weekends when there's Japanese whiskey in the room, and then I don't. And I, what else do? That's about it. I eat some vitamins. That's my version of health and well-being. But if somebody came along with an app or a pair of, some clothing or some shoes or water or all kinds of different products and categories, and they wanted to get us both to buy it, once you knew that health and well-being, our own versions of what that means, is what drives us, all you have to do is convince us that this is a product or a service that's going to help us be more healthy and more well in whatever that ways that means to us. And you got us. The point of that little story is we're not in the same target audience at all, except when we are around that value. So if you just talk to the Joshes of the world, you're missing me. And if you just talk to the me's of the world, you're missing Josh. So this is about us trying to stop the reliance on demographic stereotypes and saying the only people who are interested in health and well-being are people between the ages of 20 and 35. After that, we're all fat and sit on the sofa and eat nacho chips all night long and watch too much Netflix. Not the case, not the case at all. Demographics are a terrible way to understand anything except what your audience is. Demographics will tell you what they are. gives you a description, but it won't tell you who they are. It never will. It never has, and it won't ever in the future. Millennials do not all like avocado toast. Sorry to break it to you. Baby boomers are not all horrible with technology. Some of us are, some of us thrive on that stuff. So you can't use demographics to understand who you're talking to. So if that's the only tool you're using when you're starting to qualify leads, you're missing a whole ton of people who would be interested in whatever it is you're trying to sell. If you only could just understand what they care about and sell to them based on value graphics instead of demographics, your audience busts wide open, your close rate will go up. You can be as much as 8 times more effective with all the information that you're using as a way to get people past any objections and through the final door.
I mean, why would there be objections? Almost is what I'm thinking, because you would be talking to the right person about something they care about in the right way. You know, so you pick the right person, and I suspect because you're talking about values, it's now far more of an emotional conversation. We know that emotion drives motion. I mean, that's what I will say to people quite often. You're hitting the right spot. So why would somebody push back? They just think, yeah, great. You know, why didn't you come to me before? Where have you been all my life, type thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely about emotion. But remember, if you hit those values properly, people don't have a choice, emotions or not. You are biologically, neurologically, psychologically, sociologically hardwired as a human being to seek out and spend your days chasing more of the stuff you care about. So it's like, if you put a dog in a room who hasn't had a treat all day and you put a treat in that room, the dog is going to get the treat. It's that straightforward. If you know the right value and you can make that connection between whatever it is you'd like them to do, that group of people that you're here to try and get to do something, you just show them how your thing is the dog treat that they've been standing around going, where's my freaking dog treat? They're just coming at you. It's you know, I threw out the number a moment ago, 8 times more powerful. Let me tell you how we come up with that 8x number. You know, around the world now, because we built this database as a random stratified statistically representative set, that fancy thing that just says we're a miniaturized model of the real world, we can slice and dice it in ways that are quite interesting. So for example, we can just look at millennials, or just look at women, or just look at people who earn between $50,000 and $100,000 a year. So that's one part of the story. Second part of the story, remember that we've measured 56 core human values, dog treats, if you will, that are the only way that anybody makes a decision about anything. In addition to that, we have it's a total now of 436 different metrics that we've measured: wants, needs, expectations, all this other stuff. So you've got the ability to just take one segment of the population and see how often are they aligned on that stuff? How often do they agree? So let's look at millennials, because we've all spent a lot of time and energy talking about how we have to change the world for millennials in the last decade or two, because gosh, millennials are unicorns in the enchanted forest. We've never seen anything like them before, and they all look identical to each other, and they're basically one giant hive mind, if you want to believe most of what I see out there about millennials. Well, millennials across 436 different variables, including the 56 dog treats that determine everything we do, they only agree with each other 15% of the time, which means 85% of the time they disagree on everything. So if you're out there marketing to what you think a millennial will respond to, you only got a 15% chance that you're going to be right. That's a 15% ROI on the dollar you just spent trying to talk to those guys. Now, here's another interesting fact. If we look at all the different demographic groups around the world and figure out how often do they all agree with each other, like just on average. So you got, how often do men agree? How about boomers? How about people who earn between $50,000 and $100,000 a year? How about married people with 1 kid, or married people with 2 kids, or single people? All those classic demographic categories. They're all in the sort of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15% agreement range, all of them super low. They average out to 10.5%. So on average, the people within any demographic label, any demographic cohort, they only agree with each other 10.5% of the time. It's a 90% fail rate with every demographic audience that you're trying to target. And if you take 3 of those and pile them on top of each other, men who are earn between $50,000 and $100,000 a year, who are single and have a bachelor's degree or an undergraduate degree from university, that's just 4 groups of people who hardly agree on anything, layered on top of each other to give you a bigger group of people who hardly agree on anything. And now you go and spend $1 million trying to talk to these folks and devote your sales career to thinking you understand what that group of people is all about. So that 10.5% number, keep that in your head, because the next number I'm going to tell you is how often people within a value graphics cohort agree with each other. So if you look at a value graphics cohort, the most aligned one that I'll use, because I'm in sales too, and I like to make huge examples happen, the biggest alignment, the most agreement is around an archetype that appears in our data around the world. We call these people the adventurers. And these are people who are driven by a value called experiences. They place the value of experience way higher than possessions or any of the other things that you might value as it relates to the things that you're bringing into your life. The adventurers agree with each other on all 436 things in that database. Remember, demographic alignment around 10.5%, regardless of what group we're looking at. Adventurers agree 89% of the time on everything in that data set. So let's think about what that means. It means if you're spending $1 trying to target an audience of people and you spend it demographically, on average, you got about a 10% chance it's going to work. It's a 10% ROI. It's 10 cents on the dollar. If you spend it value graphically, you got as much as an 89% chance it's going to work. That's 89 cents on the dollar. That's about 8-9 times better, depending on how you want to do the math. So really, the statement is this: using values to understand your target audience will make you 8 times more effective than if you just use demographics and old-fashioned ways of understanding who your target audience is. Not what they are, but who they are. Those are called demographic stereotypes. And those stereotypes are false and misleading and harmful and hurtful. And if you need any evidence of that, I'll call your attention to Black Lives Matter, which is a group, a demographically defined group, standing up and saying, stop treating us like we're all one big giant. And the women's rights movement, who are all women standing up and saying, we're not all one big giant. And the gay rights movement and any other demographically oriented movement is a bunch of people who've just fed up with it and they've had enough. And they said, cut it out. Stop treating us like a demographic cluster. We are all unique individuals. We have our own wants and needs and values and expectations, and we just want to be treated as such. So demographics are not only inefficient, ineffective, they're harmful, they're hurtful. We need to stop using them for things they're not good at. What they're good at is defining an audience. I'll go back to my reading glasses. 18-year-old girls who live in Lithuania are not buying these reading glasses, no matter what I say or what their values are. But once I know what my target audience is using demographics, it's going to be people who have some sort of issue with their eyes degenerating because they need to have reading glasses, which means they're in this age category. And it means that given the fact I'm making mine out of solid gold, they're probably earned this much money. Cool. But within that group of people, realize that there's all kinds of different values, all kinds of different reasons they may be attracted to your particular reading glasses. The fact that you've put a fence around them demographically does not help you other than you've put a fence around them. What do people who are in that fence, older, eyes degenerating, having a hard time read, and they make a ton of cash, what do they have in common? Just that, nothing else. You can't also say, therefore, they like tradition and they are all about the environment and they think that personal responsibility is the most important driving factor in their life. It's wrong. They don't.
Absolutely fascinating. No, I mean, and my brain is whizzing.
Welcome to my planet.
No, it's because you gave me a load of numbers. No, I don't care about numbers. No, really interesting. You know, I'm sure, I hope people listen to this are thinking, right, so I could be 8 times better. That's attractive. I can also be a lot less wasteful. That's also attractive, you know, pain and gain. So how would, okay, so let's say a sales director is listening to this and he's thinking, okay, well, I want to get smart. I want to use value graphics to target people, or get my sales team to target people. That's where they go to you and they say, right, okay, you've got a list in my head of sort of these 57 values. And you're going to say, well, okay, what do you guys do? What do you deliver? What's the benefit for somebody? I'm guessing. And what's the prize? Okay, well, let's match that up to the value. Right. Let's then use that to start to find where those people are and then start to talk to them. Is that correct? Have I?
You're asking methodological questions here, like how do we get the right people out of the database?
Yeah. So how do I literally say, you've got all this stuff that's so valuable, and it's clear that that's what we need to be. That's what we need to be doing to be more effective. How do we do that? What happens next? I'm sold, David. I'm sold.
Well,
I'm signing up. But what am I signing up for? What are we going to do now?
Got it. I think I'm hearing a couple of questions here. One is, how do you go about doing this? Yeah. And the other one is, how can I use this myself right now if I'm listening to this podcast? So that's two different answers. First one, how we go about doing this, and it kind of answers the second one too. So one way you can understand with amazing precision what the values are of the people that you're trying to talk to is you hire us, of course. You come to us. What we do then is we go out and do what's called an unlocking survey. So this unlocking survey, we talk to a statistically representative sample of your audience, 1,300 to 1,800 people, generally about that number. We only have to ask them 2 or 3 or 4 questions, sometimes as many as 10 questions. And that tells us what we need to know to go into our benchmark study and find the lookalikes and pull out the right guys. Because we don't know anything about people who are going to buy pharmaceuticals for hair growth in our database. So we got to go and find some people who think pharmaceuticals for hair growth is exactly what they're looking for. Just get enough information from them that it's like a roadmap to go, so we can look in our giant database of 500,000 surveys and go, oh, it's you guys and some of you guys, and it's a little bit of that over there. And so we can pull all that together and go, those folks you asked us to talk to, the hair growth pharmaceutical buyers, this is what they're all about. And that's with the level of accuracy that's plus or minus 3.5%, 95% level of confidence, the Harvard level, Yale level, Princeton, Oxford level of accuracy. So that's the first answer to the question of how do we do this? Come and hire us. Far less expensive than you think. Let's have a chat. Love to talk to anybody who's keen to know about how to do this with us. However, there's 2 other ways you can do this too. Now, both of these fall under the category of what I call playing the piano with your fists. They're not super accurate. The only way to get super accurate, beautiful music to come out of that piano is, unfortunately for you and fortunately for me, we get to make some money. And this is what we do is we provide you that concert pianist experience in terms of playing the piano. But if you want to just kind of get your feet wet and bang around on it with your fists, and at least you're still playing the right instrument instead of that broken demographic cello over in the corner there with no strings on it that doesn't work and never did, you're on the value graphics piano, but you're banging away on it, you're on your own. There's 2 ways to do that. First one is going to cost you about $11, and that's to buy a copy of my book. And the book at the moment is, it's available on Amazon all over the world, all the different Amazons.uk, .us, whatever. And in there is a 10-question quiz that you can put into SurveyMonkey or whatever your CRM system is and shoot it out to your audience and get them to answer those 10 questions. And the response, there's an answer key in the book as well. It'll tell you which of the 10 chapters in the book is most like your audience. Now, those are 10 really big, huge, massive, we call them archetypes. And when we're doing custom work, remember, there's hundreds of thousands of possible responses that we're going to pull out of that data set. This is just 10. It's the 10 biggest ones. I mentioned one earlier, the adventurers. So the adventurers, we know a bunch of stuff about the adventurers. So there's a whole chapter in there about the adventurers. And if you give people that 10-question quiz, it turns out that's the chapter that's most applicable, you'll learn a bunch of stuff about the adventurers. But it's only one of 10 that we can share in the book in a way that's not like going to make everybody's head explode and make the book this thick, this thick.
That's quite thick if you're listening to it. We're looking at each other. It was very thick what he was showing us.
So it's very much a tool that you can use to sort of see a broad direction. and understand you should be running north and not south. But if what you're doing is something that involves more, that you would like to see more precision around, and you work directly with us, we'll take you not just north and south, but north by north, south, southwest by 1 point of a degree. We'll tell you exactly what kind of north you should be running towards. But you can find out for $11 that you should be running north. Lastly, if you don't want to even spend $11, you want to just do it for free, there's a shorthand way you can start to see what this is kind of about. There's 3 questions that you can ask your customer base or target audience, whatever. So when we talk to our customers, when we do surveys and we send stuff out, or we get the guys on the shop floor to, do an informal poll of people who walk through the store that day, we always get them to ask questions that are demographically and psychographically oriented. We're very fascinated to know, are you a man? Are you a woman? Are you rich? Are you poor? Do you have kids? Do you don't have kids? Do you, all that kind of stuff. So we collect all that information, but as we've just discussed, none of it's going to help you. So I don't know why we even bother. Secondly, we ask a bunch of questions about ourselves. Do you like my product? How much do you like my product? Do you like it a lot? Would you buy 3? Would you tell a friend about it? Have you told a friend about it? We want to know all kinds of stuff about us. What we never do is ask them about them. We never say, what's on your mind, buddy? What are you most worried about right now? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What makes you go to work every day? Why do you do that? We don't get to the level of asking questions about what people actually value. So here's 3 questions, if I can remember these off the top of my head. 3 questions you can include in your next customer study or your next, on the sales floor, asking people coming in the door. The big caution is this is even less accurate than sending out the survey in the book. And it's pretty inaccurate compared to doing this properly. So this is just a broad, peek at what values-driven thinking can do for you, values thinking can do for you. So
this is boxing gloves on the piano.
Yeah, boxing gloves on the piano, or like an entire arm or your forearm banging up and down on it, or another piano on top of the piano, bang, bang. But at least you're still playing with the piano, right? So here's question number 1 is, why do you get up and go to work every morning? Why? Not, why?
Yeah.
People are going to have an answer, I assume, that's about, wow, I like my toys, or my family. I'm worried about my family's future, or I don't know, who knows? There's 56 possible things they'll say. Now they'll talk about those 56 values using their own language, but there's only 56 things that drive people to do stuff. So why do you go to work every day? It's going to be one of those 56 things. Your job is to collect enough of them that you start to see a bit of a pattern there. And you're going, oh, our people are really driven by family. That's the answer we're getting to that question. But that means they're driven about family and everything else in their life too. So then you start trying to talk to them about your product, service, or brand based on family. Super unscientific, right? Whoever happens to come in the store that day, whoever doesn't delete your email survey that you send out, but it's a start. Second question, you've just won the lottery, huge amount of money. Why would you give half away?
Interesting, yeah.
And the third question, you get to write a letter to yourself 10 years in the future. So you are 10 years in the future, you're writing a letter to yourself today. What do you suppose you'd say to yourself, and why? So it's all about the why.
Yeah.
It's all about, there are various ways of figuring out, why do people do the things, think the things, behave the way they do? Because if you get to the why, remember, everything we believe, every action, every behavior, every emotion stems from a value. So you start to get to the whys around behaviors and emotions and actions. You're starting to get a little peek under the hood at that value graphic engine that's going on in there. What we provide when we do the custom work is it's statistically accurate. We got the most amazing engine under that hood. We got a Lamborghini engine in there, and it's being finely tuned every single day by a team of Lamborghini engineers. So that's really the only difference. We're all just trying to get to why. We're doing it in an incredibly precise way. It's a little, it's far less precise to just use the 10 questions in the book, but at least, you know, it's 10 questions. And if you don't even want to buy the book, there's 3 questions that can get you started, at least thinking about what values can do in your world and what it is you're trying to, how the people you're trying to get to do something.
That is superb. I mean, it's really generous of you to share those ways, but I guess to a degree, you want people to start thinking about this. And if we start at least stopping the demographic thinking more the value graphic, then we're on course to be working with you or doing stuff in a more effective way, which would kind of, I suspect, and I'm now guessing, sit very comfortably with your own values.
Sure. And I mean, frankly, everybody listening is in sales in one way or another. You know exactly what I'm doing. So I'm trying to, I'm handing out the sheet music here, saying, you know, here's a way to go play some music. But if you want the composer to come in and conduct the symphony orchestra that is your organization, you'll give me a call. You'll find me at valuegraphics.com, and we'll maybe do some work together. So I don't mind giving away the sheet music because it does lead to lead gen for us. But more importantly, there's another reason, and this is our real reason for getting up in the morning, our why around why do we go to work every day, and it's this. The world around us right now, in fact, let's make this really personal. The room that you're sitting in, everything that you can see in that room, it all began its life in exactly the same way. And that is in a boardroom with a group of people who were assigned to sit around and talk about who are we making this thing for? This product, this service, this brand, this idea, this institution, whatever it is. And we define that group of people using demographics. We say, we're going to build this for 18 to 24-year-old men who earn $50,000 a year and blah, 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 blah. But what we don't realize we're doing when we do that is we're speaking in a very divisive language. The origin story of everything in the room you're in right now is a conversation about us versus them, rich versus poor, young versus old, educated versus uneducated, male versus female, with kids, without kids. That's creating division around the very birth moment of everything that's ever been made. Instead, if that conversation was, what do the people that we're making this thing for have in common? What do they care about as humans? What makes them get up in the morning and love their life? I think we'd have a far more unified world and a far less divisive world. So if we can just get people out there, even at a most basic level, to start thinking value graphically instead of demographically, we can erase some of those demographic stereotypes that are the foundation of everything in our lives right now that's causing so much division. When value graphics can unite us, demographics push us apart. So that's our big vision for the world. If we could just get everyone to change the way they look at the world, we can have a much, much better world for everyone.
I don't know how to round that off, David, because that is absolutely superb. I mean, what a way to end. I mean, apart from, I think you take it more than that, though, don't you? I think you actually do use quite a bit of your time and part of that database, part of those graphics for good. You
oh yeah,
donate.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's the right word. You use it to help that. It's not just, yeah, that's my vision, that's kind of nice. It's you actually do that stuff. When people aren't paying you to do it for them, you're going, well, that's cool. You've now freed a bit of my time to do this practically. Can you give me a couple of minutes on that? This is your Robin Hood story. So I said we'd talk about Robin Hood. We have to speak about I'm in Robin Hood country, remember? I'm sat by the Major Oak.
I have been to the Major Oak. I know Sherwood Forest as a tourist with a bag of popcorn in my hand. So I don't really know it all that well, but I've been there. I can visualize it in my head. So yeah, we like to refer to ourselves as a Robin Hood organization. We're here to earn money by helping organizations do really great things and 8x the effectiveness and efficiency of every interaction that they have with their target audience, wherever they are in the world, no matter what it is they're trying to accomplish. And then we take some of that money, we pay our mortgage and buy ourselves a new shirt every now and then, but we take that money and we use it to help global humanitarian organizations do the things they're trying to do to make the world a better place. So as an example, we're working with the United Nations, and the United Nations, they have a foundation inside that's devoted to raising money for mosquito nets, and then giving these away to free all over the world to countries where you can still die from malaria if you're bitten by the wrong mosquito. So sleep under one of these mosquito nets, you won't die from malaria. So if we can help them find ways to activate values with different groups of people who are willing to donate to this cause and eradicate mosquito-borne malaria infections, that feels like a pretty good thing to me. We've also done work with another group called the Environmental Defense Fund, and they're based in Washington, D.C. We really liked working with them because they're what's called a multi-purpose organization or multi-purpose environmental fund. So they raise cash to put money into all kinds of stuff that's going on with the environment all over the world. Many groups are just like, we're all about polar ice caps melting, or we're all about the Amazon rainforest, all of which are great. We were particularly interested in this group because they do all of those things. They fund science going on in all kinds of different areas that will benefit the planet in the long run. So we, again, with them, help them understand how to talk to the people who are supporting them in all kinds of different ways, and trigger the behaviors and get those groups of people to do the things they'd like them to do. So there's two examples of the way we're trying to live our values and use value graphics to help make the world a better place.
Cool. That is so cool, and it's also something I believe in. I've recently signed up with B1G1, the Buy One Give One, which support the Sustainable Development Goals of UN. And so when I'm training, when I'm doing things, I like to try and align something to what we've done for people, what we're going to do anyway. You and I are going to do a podcast anyway at some stage. You're going to promote the business. I'm going to do the podcast. We know why we're doing it. You know, our audience aren't daft here. But because you've given your time and because people are going to listen to this, I'm going to go to the B1G1 website. I'm going to select something and I'm going to donate to it to say a thank you to you, because I suspect that's probably one of the best thank yous I can give to you, because the way
it's 100% the best thank you.
So
thank
what shall we do? Trees. I'll go to trees. I'll go to trees because we talked about the major oak. We'll go. There'll be something on there either about rainforests or about planting fruit trees for farmers, and I will. I'll make a donation on your behalf to say thank you for coming on and taking me through this fascinating insight to value graphics. It's
been my pleasure. Thank you. If anybody wants more information, valuegraphics.com. We're constantly publishing free reports and things there that we think will be helpful to different people. Also, social media, I'm on LinkedIn. That's kind of where I live. I dabble in some other places, but LinkedIn's a place to go. We're always putting new information up there as well. So hopefully some people have found this useful and helpful. And if anybody wants to have a chat, you'll be able to find us that way. One of those two channels.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, David. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.